All right, guys. So with the Creepshow television series coming to Shudder soon, I've been waiting to do this. We're gonna knock out the Creepshow movies right before. I'm very, very excited for this new show. In fact, I was so excited that I ended up spending a lot of money to pick up this badass Blu-ray right here. One of the second most expensive Blu-ray that I've ever purchased. A shout out to Jason Bros, though. He tried to send me a digital thing to get like $10 off, $15. He was giving it away to me just so that I could pick this up because he saw that I was looking for it and I didn't want to spend the 40 freaking dollars on it. And I was like, that's outrageous. Why is this thing so expensive? But it is very cool. It comes with a book. It comes, it's in this awesome case. Um, but yeah, it really, I mean, in my hand, it is freaking beautiful. I will admit, and the transfer is gorgeous. All of the, it does a 4K scan. It's got all these incredible special features. It's a great pickup. $40 is pushing it for any film. It's the second most expensive Blu-ray I've ever bought, movie I've ever bought. Second to Suspiria, which I paid way too much for, but that's nor here nor there. But thank you to Jason for helping out with that. And yeah, I mean, I ended up cashing in that and then another thing and then some change, and then it ended up costing me like $10. It was a big ordeal though, because like I had to call into Amazon because they took down my money and blah blah blah, and I had to sit on the phone for like a half an hour. It was a blah blah blah. Okay, we're done with that. Let's get to the movie. People are always. I just got a comment from some guy, like two different comments from some guy talking about how all I do is rant and rave, and my reviews could be good if I ever just stuck to the point. Fuck you. Clearly you don't know anything about my channel, and I'll rant and fucking rave about whatever the goddamn hell I want. I'll go off on some tangent about nothing that has to pertain to film in general. I'll just talk about my fucking balls for the rest of the goddamn video, you piece of shit. Shut the fuck up. Anyways, moving on. Creepshow. Very exciting. So, yeah, the culmination and the collaboration of Romero and Stephen King. How exciting, man! Just to see like them their careers kind of come to a head together. Culminate into this thing. Just kind of like here's Romero building up his horror career and King, and then you just get to that place where it's like, oh shit, and here's 82, and then they work together, and then the next year Carpenter and King work together. It's just like, who's going to work with King next? It's just all these horror icons coming out of the woodworks, to work with King. And man, how exciting this movie was. It's, anytime you bring up anthologies, I think it's just going to immediately get mentioned as one of the best. And we get this opening wraparound here, and we got Tom Atkins in here. We got Joe Hill himself. We got the little baby Joe Hill, Stephen King's son, playing the little character, Billy, right? And the music in this movie is, I feel like, is underappreciated. I don't feel like it gets talked about at all. I think the cinematography is awesome. I love the overly rich, saturated colors that they use as background to like heighten the sense of fear. It's almost taken right out of Suspiria, lifting some homages there to Argento to illustrate the bold colors of comic books to kind of bring them to life, and then the panel transitions where they're like comic book panels, and just got really creative. And while I do really like the second one a whole lot, I feel like that was missing from that movie. Like that movie should have had another segment, A, and B, it should have stuck to more of the artistic style of this movie. Then it would have had artistic continuity or atmospheric continuity. And it just, as I said, I love part two. I really do. But like the cartoony opening and all of that, and the cartoony wraparound and all that. It's like, it's cool, and I don't dislike it, but it would have been so much cooler had they stuck to the style they had here. They would have just flowed together so much better. But anyway, we'll save that for the second one. All right. The creeper effects in the opening are just awesome. Don't like the ones in the second one. This one is much cooler. It's very reminiscent of something like the Crypt Keeper, more of a practical puppet of sorts. So I dug the hell out of that. The composer of this movie, who did that brilliant soundtrack, is actually the director of the Tales from the Dark Side movie, which a lot of people, including Tom Savini himself, consider to be Creepshow 3, which technically kind of was supposed to be, and it was worked on by Romero and Stephen King. So it makes sense why people would say that. All right, getting into the first segment, Father's Day. I want my cake, Cordelia. Bedelia. All right, so we got Ed Harris in here. So Ed, I have no Harris, actually has some Harris on his head in this one. And of course, his dance is up there with freaking Friday the 13th, part 4, with his, he puts his hand over his head, and he's just like, ooh, his dance in this is pretty hilarious. So Bedelia comes to the grave every year on Father's Day at clockwork, and she sits there and she boozes it up, and it's like, don't you think she'd celebrate it? But I guess normal people, when pushed too far, kill people, and then they regret it, or they have guilt in their heart because they're good people and they're not supposed to kill people. But she comes there with extreme guilt, and I think her performance, especially when she's at the grave and she's kind of just chatting to herself and losing her mind, I think it's fantastic. I think it's a great performance from her. And we find out that essentially the whole family is in on this guy's death. And this is one of those rare instances where it's like, this guy totally deserved what he got. And this is like a revenge tale, monster revenge tale. But it's like, these people, this guy deserved every freaking thing he got. And the reason that she did it is because she had a significant other who was 75 years old, and he had him killed, and then just was screaming at her. It was just too far, and she took the ashtray, which makes an appearance in every segment, including the wraparound. So look for it throughout the movie. If you've never noticed it in other segments, it is in every single segment. I will not say where, but they are there. And she smashes him over the head with it. Now, why the hell does Ed Harris take so goddamn long to get out of that grave? He never does, but why is he I get he's scared stiff, and then he finds a body, and then he looks up and he sees a zombie, and yes, all of that stuff would be terrifying. But to see that thing slowly moving, I feel like the first time he saw that thing even twitch, he would have been up out of that grave instantly. Anybody would have. Freaking somebody with, some paralyzed paraplegic would have figured his way out of that damn thing in about 2 seconds. So we got a zombie here who also has supernatural powers. So he has the ability to, he doesn't even have to put his hands out in movies, he just stands there, and then the thing just pushes itself off onto there. Or did someone else raise from the grave and they were pushing it from behind? Ooh, that'd be interesting. Who else could be back there? Maybe it was the dude who he had killed, the 75-year-old. That's possible. There you go. I'm throwing in some curveballs. They're total bullshit, but there you go. And then when they come back to Ed Harris's wife, who's given me some Annie Brackett vibes for some reason, she's still dancing to the exact same song that he left too. So she's just replaying this song. Is this the only song she has? Is this song just her jam? Is she 5 years old and has to listen to the same song over and over and over again? And then I feel like the cake head should have been Bedelia's head. It just doesn't make sense to me that it's the other chick's. That's whose head he should be on that platter. Just, I don't know. The other head just doesn't make sense. But I do like when he grabs her head and he snaps it around, and then when they come out and they all, and all the light behind him, and then it turns into the panels. Super cool. Oh, really, really good stuff. And then it freeze frames and like changes into art. It's so cool. It's like a comic book coming to life, and you're like seeing it come to life, and then it's like going back into the page. It's a really neat idea, and I think it's really well executed. All right, next up we've got The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill. Dude, I am so stuffy on this side of my nose. I want to scream. Anyway, all right, so we got Stephen King playing Jordy Verrill here, and I don't care what anyone says. People can be like, this is over the top, this is too much, whatever. I don't give a fuck. I think he's hilarious in this. I love his performance in this. Meteor shit! Like the way he plays it. I read something saying that Romero told him to act like Wile E. Coyote when he like is on the rocket and he realizes like he's fucked, like he's gonna have that kind of expression, that kind of attitude the whole time. His fantasies are just great. The fact that he finds a meteorite and his first idea is that he's gonna take it to this guy and the guy's gonna offer him like $50 and he's like, no, 200, and he's like, all right, however much, and then he's like, nope, 200. Mama didn't raise no idjit. And then he's like counting. He's like, keep a counting. The way he performs that, the way his lines, all that stuff. And then when he like breaks, he throws the water on it to cool it down because he can't wait. He's got to take it right then and there, I guess. It breaks in half, and then he has this like other fantasy of the same scenario, except for this time he's got a broken one. And I find it so funny that he's so ashamed of this that he takes his hat and he tries to like cover it up, like the guy is gonna forget about it or not see it because he's covering it up. I don't know why I find the hat covering up the meteor so funny, but even though it's a fantasy, it's not even actually happening, but it's like a little kid who's trying to hide what they did. And it's like, they're just throwing something over, and it's like, that doesn't make it go away. I still know what's on the other side of that. I don't know. It's adorable. It kind of reminds me that he's like 5 years old in his head. All right, and then he doesn't call the doctor, who's played by the same guy in his fantasy, because he thinks he's gonna amputate it. And I love these like fantasy sequences because they're very dreamlike. So they're like, they illustrate them very well in the sense that it's in his mind. I think that they're really cool the way they do it, and then they kind of put it in this boxed frame, and I just think it's cool. It's like a panel, but it's moving and it's fun. And then I would assume that this plague, so to speak, would actually be great for the planet. It's like, it's turning the whole planet green. He's got some Green New Deal, man. He's helping everyone out. He's gonna spread the thing, and then we find out there's going to be rainstorms, and it's gonna turn the whole county green overnight. It really sure is. I love that he makes a screwdriver, which of course, anytime I think of freaking vodka and orange juice and a screwdriver, I always think of Pauly Shore in Son-in-Law. You got a screwdriver? Sorry, I'm all out of vodka. But I love that he makes that and he takes the bottle in the cup and he just uses the bottle to stir up his drink. I just find that to be really funny. And then he's like having this fight with himself, and then he has this talk with his father in the mirror, and he's like trying to resist the urge to jump in the water, but it's just like, it's like glistening, it's like calling to him, and he itches so bad, he just can't help it. You ever had that itch that you just try to ignore, and no matter what you do, it's just like, I can't. Could you imagine having that all over your body, and then to get in there and to have it like relieved instantly? And then, he has to blow his head off, and there's this like sparkle from the gun. It's a really weird shot, but yeah, it blows his head off. And then the stuff is heading towards Castle Rock from Stephen King's world. Castle Rock season 2 next month, right? With Annie Wilkes. Really looking forward to that. I know the last episode of season 1 was a bit of a letdown for me, but I'm still looking forward to season 2. All right, moving on to Something to Tide You Over, starring Leslie Nielsen. Holy shit. And Shirley. Just kidding. Yes, I am. Don't call me Shirley. And Ted Danson. Now, I actually saw Ted Danson outside my work once. And I was cutting a client's hair, and someone was like, Ted Danson's outside. And I was like, oh I gotta go out there and be like, hey, Wentworth. Like I wanted to so bad, but I couldn't finish my climb fast. And then I ran all around the complex looking for him. And I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to bring up Creepshow. I bet no one's brought him up Creepshow in forever. He's probably going to think, he's either going to be like, ew, fuck off. Like, who cares about that shit? Or he's going to be like, oh my God, no one's ever brought that up to me. No one's brought that up to me in 20, 30 years. And so I was really excited, but I never did find him. So total bummer. I would have also been able to tell him. It would have made him feel even older than he was, I'm sure, feeling at that moment, because he was really old looking when I saw him. This movie was made, came out when I was born, 1982. Date of my birth, year of my birth. Can Wentworth, Ted Danson's character, really bench 300 pounds? He doesn't look like he can. 300. That reminds me of that Sex Drive movie. What you putting up? What's a lot? Putting up about 300. My brother and I still quote that fucking line to this day. It's still so funny. The moral of the story: don't fuck someone else's wife. Pretty simple. I'm not saying that I have the best track record in my whole past, but I have stories to back it up. Okay, there was reasons, not good ones, not great ones, and now I've just completely shattered my reputation with everybody. But I'm an honest guy, but I have my reasoning. Okay, we'll move past that. All right. And Leslie Nielsen, shit, I mean, it's not much different than this scenario, to be completely honest. But anyways, all right. He sees his freaking wife as a total piece of property. It's just like the principle of it all. Like, I don't really want her, but I don't, she's mine. She's mine, and I'm keeping her, and I don't really give a shit. I don't even think I ever loved her. I don't care. She's my possession. She's my property. And as this millionaire, he sees everything as his. He owns it. Ugh, he's horrible. But man, Leslie Nielsen, Mr. Freaking, Naked Gun himself, the dude who did Dracula, Dead and Loving It, and all these damn movies, the guy who was known for all of his goofy roles. I was even reading in the trivia that he used to carry around like a fart machine or fart something in his pocket that he would play in between scenes that would make everyone crack up. So he was always a comedian, but I really like him as a dramatic actor. I thought he was great in this as the villain. And then he tells Danson or Wentworth that he wants to just incapacitate him. So Richard's a total dick, because he really is. And he falls for it because what other choice does he have? It's either that or a bullet. Which I don't know, man. I don't know. If you're going to shoot me in the head, that'd probably be better than drowning. But shooting me and letting me bleed out, I'd probably rather drown. So bad choices all around, though. And he points out that he'd have no leverage, which is true. He would be totally fucked in this situation. And then he brings down this TV all the way from his house with cords that have to, auxiliary cords that can stretch that far. It's crazy to see that kind of technology. But he brings it out there, and he has to watch his love drowned, like knowing that not only is he next, but that their actions cost her life. And while Richard's up there watching it, you can almost see a sense of regret. You can almost not regret so much as just like, this is hard to watch. Maybe I thought this was going to be a little easier than it actually is, because he's like looking around, and then he's almost flattered that Wentworth even like mentions him, because he looks up like, oh, like he's talking to me. Oh, I'm being acknowledged. All right. Like, I don't know, the way he looks up, I think that's really good subtle acting there from him. But he does convey that he has some kind of regret or something, but he never acts on it. He never like goes out there to try to get him and like retracts or any of that kind of stuff. But anyway, and then they come back, and then somehow, I don't even know why they bother walking to the house and in through the house, because they can just teleport behind him. So I do love how horror movies and any movie have that convenience of editing, where it's like, I talk about this all the time. Like, I'd love to see Jason clean up the bodies, or Michael clean up the bodies, or the ridiculous scene in I Know What You Did Last Summer, where somehow he got the dead body and all of the crabs or whatever out of the trunk. in like 2 seconds without anyone hearing it or seeing it or anything, and it's completely clean inside. Bull fucking shit, impossible nonsense. But regardless, I want to see this stuff take place. And in this, it's like, did they like walk him down there and make him bury himself? Did they dig up a hole with him standing? Did they pick him up and take? Did they grab him and teleport him into the hole? Like, what happened in that sequence to get him into the ground? So, I don't know. I can hold my breath for a very, very long time. I love it. And that shot of Danson when he's under the water fully, and I don't feel like the water would be so high at that point. He'd be dead long, long ago. But it's still a cool shot. I'm sure they shot it in like a fish tank. But regardless, it's ridiculous when you think about it. All right, next up, The Crate with Adrienne Barbeau. I just saw Adrienne Barbeau at Mad Monster Party Phoenix a few months ago. She looks great, man. She's got to be in her 70s, 60s, 70s, but, you know, she's still got it. And freaking Tom Atkins was also there as well. So it's cool to see them together. They were really close to each other in booths. And, oh, God, Billy. Billy is a character that you love that her husband constantly keeps fantasizing about murdering her. And that everyone is, like, patting, like good job. What a nice shot. So good. Bullseye. I love that girl who just yells out, bullseye. So good. And then his buddy Dexter is after all the young co-eds. I had said on my Facebook group that my ideal episode for the new Shudder series is an Arctic expedition in 1834 and them finding the crate monster, locking the crate monster in the crate, and then shipping it to this school at the end. That would be such a badass episode. I would love the callback. This actually, I mean, the time periods don't match up, but this almost feels like a prequel to the amazing Terror Train with Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Telly Savalas from 1972. My favorite horror movie poster. Love that movie, but very similar. Arctic expedition, they lock it in a crate, it's a monster inside. So it almost feels like that's a prequel to this, except for this thing doesn't end up being the Antichrist. It looks more like a freaking werewolf with like a critter or a Muppet head or something. It's like, whoa! It's actually in my intro for Monster Monday, and this is the first time I've ever covering it, so finally getting to this one. The whole, what would you do without me? God, she plays this so well. She's a little over the top. I can't believe anyone wouldn't be like, shut the fuck up. I would. But she's just so horrible. And then the janitor's taken out, which is really sad. And then the student, I think this is the best kill in the whole movie. The student that comes down there to help Dexter, and he goes next to the crate, and then he gets slashed across the face, and it actually slashes his eyeball as well, and like rips out a piece. It's a really great effect, and really solid work there from Savini. So good stuff. I like that it actually pushes its crate back under the stairs itself. It actually gets out of the box and pushes it back, then gets, I just think that's great. I think that's really funny. You don't get to see it. Like an actual full shot of him pushing the crate would have looked absurd and stupid as all hell. So I'm glad that they kept it at the angle they did, but I just kept thinking of him actually outside the crate, like pushing it along, like, I'm going back home. And then he drugs his friend because Dexter comes back to tell him, and he's like, perfect opportunity to murder my wife and get away with it. So he brings her, he writes her this note. Now, this note is like this long. And this, what she reads out loud, not only is she getting off on the fact that this girl was assaulted and probably raped or assaulted. I mean, I guess is the best way to put it. Taken advantage of. This thing is way too long to fit on that piece of paper that she has. This piece of paper is seriously this long, and she reads for like 5 straight minutes. It's like, how small is Harold's handwriting in this? Like, how tiny is this dude's writing? Hilarious. And then he takes her in there and he pushes her down. She even puts alcohol in her milk, which reminds me of this girl I used to date. Had a sister, and she was really young. She was like 16 years old, and this was her first time drinking with her friends. And they put alcohol in milk to try to hide it. And then of course they ended up vomiting everything, and they called it filk, which I don't even know why they called that, but that's what they called it, and just reminded me of it when I saw it. Like, of all the things to not put. That's like eggnog, when people are like eggnog. Well, alcohol and cream do not mix. All right. And I just, oh man, I love that he just sets up his wife. Like, he's instant reaction is like, I can kill my wife. I can get away with it. I fantasize about it every day. This is the perfect alibi. And then I like how he actually even addresses, like, where the hell is he even putting the bodies? How is he eating them? Is there like a black hole in his mouth? So he takes them, and then when he locks it up in the crate and he throws it in, you can hear it almost be like, oh, because he's like, in the end, I think it knew what was happening to it. And then he like puts his hands through it, and then he kind of like slinks back, and you almost hear a like sigh from the crate monster. But then he's like, how do you know? Like, how do you know if it didn't come out? He's like, he's dead. He drowned down there. And then we see the thing break open. And he's out. He's out on the loose. So we could see the crate monster in an episode of the Creepshow series. We'll never know. We'll never know until we see it. All right, next up, we've got They're Creeping Up on You with E.J. Marshall, who's been in a ton of stuff, but he'll always be Art to me from Christmas Vacation. There's a lot of lights. None of them are twinkling. I know, Art. Oh, I love freaking Christmas Vacation. So damn good. All right, so he is a total germaphobe, which reminds me of Howie Mandel, who's a total germaphobe as well. Never been around an actual, like, full-blown hypochondriac germaphobe before. I've been around some hypochondriacs, some people with ADHD. I've been around people with obsessive compulsive disorder, but never someone who's like germaphobed out like this guy. Some freaking like Howard Hughes, out of his fucking mind, a lunatic who lives in his sealed off penthouse apartment. It reminds me of my old apartment. I told that story on the channel once upon a time, where the freaking cockroach fell into my butt crack as I was sitting at my computer. I had the most infested apartment imaginable. Wasn't my fault. I'm a very clean person. It was just in the walls. I read that they spent $125,000 on the cockroaches. They were 50 cents a piece, and they bought 250,000 of them. I would not have worked on this for any reason. I despise bugs, and being on a set with 250,000 of them and having to have them crawl anywhere near me on my body, no fucking way. Absolutely not. Yeah, he's just an absolute old codger piece of shit. Like when Mrs. Katzenmeyer calls him up on the phone, and he's like, he knows her husband just killed himself. He's like, Mrs. Katzenmeyer, hi. He's so excited to hear from her. He's so excited to tell her what a piece of shit her husband was, and how he's stomped on plenty of other people, and all like his excitement level for attacking this woman when she's down just makes him such a despicable human being, but pretty funny. And then there's a lot of stuff going on in here that makes you think that this is all in his head, that he's killed himself by his own fears, because like he crushes a roach, and then he looks at his glove and there's no imprint, there's no stain, there's no nothing from a roach. So, and then when he sees, like, when everything's done, when he's gone, when the place attacked him, then they show the whole place, and there's no cockroaches absolutely anywhere, and he's just laying in his room dead. But then it busts open, and that kind of breaks down the theory, but it very much feels throughout the whole thing like this is all in this guy's head. They're creeping up on you in your mind. They're not actually there. That's really all I have to say about that one. His performance is really good. It's very isolating. There's a few of those. There's not a lot of characters in this. I mean, they can't really be in anthologies, but they're very like secluded. They're very one location, and I'm fine with that. The crate is definitely the best of the best in this one, in my opinion. And then the wraparound, we got Tom Savini himself making an appearance here as the garbage man, and then Joe Hill taking a piece of the shirt of his father and sticking it into his neck. You poor old bear. You need me to get you some Bengay? And then he just stabbed. Did you think he killed him? Do you think he killed him? Did he just keep stabbing him till he died? Or was he teaching him a lesson? Is he going to continue to just keep doing it for years to come? Like, this guy is just like walking around in agony. Like, he lets him up for like a day or two and then makes him think he got over it and then just starts stabbing him in the back again. Now that's some vindictive, evil shit right there. Like, just killing him outright is probably better. But I guess I went one step further. I don't know if his dad deserves to die, but the pain is good. You know, make that guy think twice. Let him know that, hey, tonight at 8 o'clock, you're going to get a sharp pain right here. It's me. Just so you know. Just so you know. So watch the clock. And then every night he'd be sitting there, what the fuck? Anyway, guys, all right, that was fun. I will knock out Creepshow 2 tomorrow. Adios.